Hi everyone, I'm Ekta Kaul. I'm an artist and I'm based in London, and this here is my studio. Today I wanted to share with you a conversation that I had very recently with my dear friend and the very talented textile artist Maryse Allard. Um, Maryse lives in Paris and has a beautiful, beautiful practice working with the Korean patchwork art of Bojagi. In this conversation, we would be exploring Maryse's approach to cloth, to Bojagi, and we would also hear from her about her creative journey. And I'm very much hoping that you will enjoy this conversation as much as I did. But before we jump into that, I'd love to share something very exciting with you. I have invited Maryse to be a part of my upcoming retreat in France. So she will join us for an afternoon as my special guest artist. And we will share this lovely intimate time with her, where she's going to talk to us about her approach to Bojagi and share her top secrets, techniques, materials, stitches with all of us. So that is hugely, hugely exciting. Let me tell you the dates. It's happening from the 19th of April to the 29th of April. So we will be spending the first 3 days of the retreat in Paris, soaking up all the wonderful inspiration. We'll be visiting haberdasheries, we'll be going to museums, the flea markets, and of course, a lovely intimate workshop with Maryse herself. And then we will head off to south of France, to the countryside, to this beautiful, beautiful hidden, tucked away spot near Toulouse, where we will spend the next 7 days together exploring creative stitch with me. So there is such a lot of treats that are waiting for you, and I very much hope that you will join us. I will add the dates and description down here in the show notes, so you can go ahead and check out the retreat, read more about it, what we'll be doing, and all of the textile adventures that we will be heading on. So now I invite you to join me on this conversation with Maryse Allard. If you have questions, pop them in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Enjoy. Welcome, welcome, welcome here, Maryse. It is lovely to have you with us. This is, I think, your recent exhibition in Paris. So let's begin with that. These are all beautiful, beautiful Bojagi pieces. So I'm going to hand this over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ekta, for your kindness and for inviting me to share my passion with all your friends. I'm very honored to be here and to present my passion about Bojagi. Thank you for spending time with me, and I hope after that you will be very interested by Bojagi. This is an exhibition of my Bojagi in Paris last March. And for that, I created those black and white Bojagi, which is not traditional, but which was very interesting for me. The way of displaying too is important because I love people enter in my world so they can go in front, behind, and pass through and between my works. This is some details about the black and white. It's made with cotton and black silk from Korea. And the other one with circle is completely open. It's not appliqué. Very often people ask to me, do you put some appliqué? No, it's just open. For me, it's very important to see both sides of my works. And this is made with rami because this is very traditional in Korea.
Lovely. I was struck by how precise everything is in your work. You know, the stitches, the joining of the corner is just superlative. The kind of um, finesse you bring to your work is just amazing. And I feel so lucky at having seen these works in person. So here is a close-up for people
Oh,
to actually see your stitches. So tell us about.
you, yeah, you are really so kind. I think when you present your work, and I think it's the same for you, when you present your work to people for exhibition or something like that, or for workshops, I think it's very important for me to present something very neat, because most of the Bojagi I've seen in Korea, even old one, most of them are very neat. But I love the contrast between the colors, or not, for the red, for example, but I love the lines. And for me, the lines need to be very neat. This is my opinion. I know that other Bojagi artists do differently, but this is mine. I'm very happy when I see this pure line. This is what I'm looking for most of the time.
Lovely.
This was completely different. This is only made with machine, because most of the time I work with by hand. But this was made for a workshop with upcycling. I wanted to show that Bojagi can be used to not only for decoration, but it can be very interesting for cloths. And I remember, I think it was in 2014 or something like that, Karl Lagerfeld made a very beautiful défilé in Seoul with Bojagi. And I had two fashion show in Japan and in Russia with clothes I prepared. And I think it's not only for putting on wall, but for clothes and for wearing it too.
That's right. I mean, we see examples of Bojagi often as wrapping, or maybe as space dividers or interior installations. It's so interesting to see them as clothing, particularly how you've used it on the cuffs. I can see a lot of us feeling excited about that. It was like, oh, I can see what I want to do with my Bojagi.
Absolutely.
That's great. Tell us about this one. It's so
Yeah.
colorful.
Oh, thank you. This was a kind of challenge for me. It was during COVID. We were all at home and very sad. And a friend of mine was living she's Korean, Young-min Lee. Maybe some of them know about her. She's very famous Bojagi artist too. And she proposed us, I think we were 6 or 7 artists all over the world, to use not transparent fabric, sorry, from Korean designer. Her name is Okamoka. She's making collage with paper, and after that, manufacturing different fabrics. But this was not transparent, and for me quite a challenge. And I wanted really to have to be able to see both sides. This is really important for me. And this is a hole in the two fabrics. And I put some organdie with transparency and some embroidery with very simple threads. But this was very interesting to play with light. You see, you don't see, and I think this is a permanent play for me, and always a challenge.
We can well understand that challenge, right? We've been trying Bojagi ourselves, and we are so curious to hear from you, your approach to Bojagi. And again, this thing of playing with different materials, different thicknesses, and again, transparency is just so beautiful to see. And when you layer it up, I'm particularly enjoying this with lots of vibrant colors. And then, of course, there's the translucency again. This is also a beautiful piece. Maryse, tell us about this one. This is
Yeah.
stitched, isn't it?
So yes, this is a running stitch. Most of the time in Bojagi, I use whip stitch, which is for me very interesting too, because that makes a very pure lines. You don't see the seams. If you choose some similar color for sewing, it's almost invisible. But in this case, it's completely different. I wanted to use some very old, the yellow one is very old silk from Korea. And I wanted to make some mix between traditional and very ancestral fabrics and very modern one, which are the Okamoka designs. And this is, as you say, some places you see, you don't see. And this is always a playing for me. I use very often very thin fabrics and some thicker like linen or rami. And I think it's really, you can play really with those kind of fabrics.
So is this another view of the same piece?
No, this is another one.
One.
Yeah, this one, it was, as you can see, there are 4 links at each corner of the Bojagi. This is the shape of a very traditional Bojagi, which, as you know, probably, Bojagi was used for wrapping, protecting, and transporting things. For that reason, I wanted to put some links, 4 links at each corner, sorry. And I wanted to mix some very modern approach in order to give the impression that Bojagi is really still alive. You can see them in museums in Seoul. There are a lot of museums where very old and very beautiful Bojagi are exposed, presented. But this one is traditional by the size, by the shape, and also by the small design. You can see, for example, the pink one and the orange one, the blue one. The shape is the shape of a moon jar. Moon jar is something very traditional too in Korea. They keep them, they keep some kimchi inside, or something for keeping them, for protecting them. And this is very traditional too. So in this case, in this work, I wanted to make something, a kind of mix between traditional Bojagi and contemporary Bojagi. I'm so sorry because now I don't have it anymore because I sold it during the exhibition, and I'm very happy to see it now because yeah, I say, oh, I would like to have it now. Well, now it's somewhere, and I think it was a good. It was interesting for Korean people, for Korean person to buy, because made by European and with Korean shape.
Lovely. It's so fascinating to hear, when you said it's almost hard to part with your work, and you feel sorry that it's gone. So much of ourselves, our heart and soul, into making the pieces that we make. I can completely understand and identify with that feeling. that, oh my God, I'm almost sorry to see it go. Although it seems to me that once it's out in the world and it's living in somebody's home, the story is sort of complete. The circle is complete, but it's so hard to let go of.
Yeah,
And,
it's really,
we should be happy that it's sold and, someone's actually, liked it enough to want to buy it, but it still feels like, oh, this is a little piece of me. Yes. Um,
yeah.
so I have stopped the slides for the moment because um, I wanted us to kind of see your works, um, really see the vibrancy of the colors that you use and the precision of your lines. But I really want us to go back to the very start, and I want us to understand, talk about your journey as an artist, as a creative person. And then we will go back and look at some of the other slides that you will share with us. So let's start at the very, very beginning. Tell me, if textiles were a big part of your childhood, where does this love of cloth come from?
Yeah, you are right. Textiles were always with me since I was very young because my grandmother was an embroiderer, a white embroiderer, and she was always doing something. And I think she was an artist without knowing she was an artist. Because now when I see her work, I realized how refinate and very thin work and very high level work. But I think she didn't know, and I didn't know what was an artist when I was young, because artists were different and far from us. And it was much more important to work and to have a very interesting work and to learn some languages and to make something very important, but fabric and threads were always with me.
That is so lovely to hear. My grandmother too used to embroider. My mother's mother, who I didn't get to meet her, unfortunately. So I've kind of gotten to know her through her embroideries. And my paternal grandmother, my dad's mom, used to make quilts. So, having these beautiful textiles right from childhood, very early childhood, I think plays a huge part in shaping your aesthetic, what you like. I think it has a huge influence on what we eventually choose to work with also. I mean, the materiality of it, the emotional connection. And I'm so excited to show the slide that you have shared with us of your grandmother's embroidery. Um, so we will do that once we go back in and
Okay.
begin that. Um, so tell me, how did you first become interested in Bojagi? When did you first encounter it?
I encountered Bojagi around 12 or, well, yeah, 12 years ago. Um, After working in export for a long time, I stopped this work, and I was giving some workshop, but patchwork workshop in a big association, and I needed to make a lot of researches for my students because they wanted to learn something modern and so on and so on. So I needed to make some researches, and one day I found this book, and as I told you at the beginning, I was fascinated by the transparency and by the modernity of this art. And more I learned, and I tried to discover more about this and try on my own.
So that was 12 years ago. Um, does it feel like a long time ago, or has it felt like, oh, this has been a blink, I only just started?
Yeah, uh, yeah. sometimes I think it was yesterday, but when I noticed how many Bojagi I made, and when I see how many exhibitions, how many people I met, I realize that there is sometime or long time ago. But it was really my story with Bojagi is such a wonderful adventure that it looked to be very short.
Mm, I love that. I love it. Can you know how? So you kind of came to it a bit later in life, right? You had a career, you were doing something else, and then one day you find this book and it completely captures your imagination. And here you are 12 years later, you make these beautiful textiles yourself, and it has taken you to Korea, it has taken you to all parts of the world. I think you just got back from Corsica, right? You were saying
Yeah,
before
yeah. I
we
was in
started
Corsica
chatting.
at the beginning of September, and just after that, I was at APM in Alsace, which is a European patchwork meeting. And I was last year I was invited there for exhibition, and this year I was invited for making workshops.
That is such an amazing, exactly what the word you use, adventure, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and to go back to your earlier point, about your grandmother and perhaps even my grandmother, who didn't really know what an artist is or does, and yet they were so creative. I think textiles has been like that, right? There's been such little recognition for it being an art form that the people who were practicing also were not really aware. They didn't have the vocabulary to say that what I'm making is actually art. And my mission is to kind of say to people who make textiles and to kind of invite them into this thing of acknowledging that it is an art form, and it is an important art form that has always existed. And I feel so heartened that more and more people are recognizing that it is a medium of expression. It is a medium of discovering your own self. So I feel like, from your grandmother's generation to now, it is such a big change, and so many people are choosing to work with textiles and to actually embrace it for all of the things they can say with it. Of course, functional textiles, but also how it expresses emotions and feelings. And we look at your inspiration later on, where you looked at architecture. I'm so excited to talk about those pieces. So let's talk about your journey when you started. And you talked about the fact that it's been a decade and more. What have you found most challenging, Maryse, in this journey? What would you say
Um,
was tough?
um, the first challenge for me was to, because I was in a patchwork world, and the most challenging for me was and is still making the difference between with patchwork with 3 layers and Bojagi with only 1 layer. This was and this is always a challenge for me, and in this, I think I didn't succeed completely. In the other challenge was about making this art very famous, because sometimes some art, some even in your country, the art was very famous, and it disappeared, and it's just used by a few people. But Bojagi was very famous before, and during the different periods, Japanese invasion, after Second World War, and after this, the fight between communism and USA, Bojagi was not forgotten but hidden. And now Korea is very, as famous as you know, a very healthy and welfare country. So people are trying to come back in their traditions. So they are making a lot of researches about bojagi, about embroidery, about dyeing, a lot of very traditional arts. And I'm so surprised and so happy each time. I think I've been 7 times in Korea, in Seoul, or in different cities. And I'm always so surprised to notice how important Bojagi is right now. There are traditional artists, modern artists, hand and only by hand bojagi and machine by with machine bojagi, but bojagi is really still alive and really considered as an art. And this is my second challenge in Europe.
That is so heartening to hear, that there's a huge revitalizing of traditional arts. I think not just in Korea, but I sense that everywhere there's a desire to return to making with hands. There's a desire for reclaiming all of the things that were lost. Perhaps, as life is getting busier and faster and more screens are entering our lives, I think we all feel the need for tactility, for softness, for texture. Um, and textiles, I think, occupies that space, doesn't it? That it's such a humble material. It's everywhere around us. We are wrapped in it throughout our lives. And it's just, I think it's a return to simplicity. And I find that really encouraging. So it's like, whilst everything else is becoming quicker and faster, there are people like us who want to go back to doing everything by hand, for things to take weeks and months, and drawing a lot of joy from it. And your work is an affirmation of that. So I feel really, really excited. It's like, yes, more of us needs to be making bojagis.
Yeah, I think you need to, Ekta. You need to try too, because you explain very well your work too. When I see your beautiful work, I see that you work by hand too when
Yes.
you sew, and it's. I think it looks like for me, it's a kind of meditation. Because you are just alone, you can listen music, and you can let you bring out, not bring out, but you can go away and without just some relaxing, even if you need to work a lot, it's completely out of the world, which is very nervous and very noisy by this period.
Yeah, I so agree with you. I mean, stitching, especially hand stitching, I always feel is so meditative. And even when I'm working towards a deadline, the making never feels stressful. It's all the other bits that are stressful: getting them photographed in time, getting them packed and booking the courier and sending it to the galleries. All of that feels quite fraught, but the actual sitting with the cloth and just stitching, oh, that I could do that all day, every day. In fact, I consider it a lucky day when I get to stitch, like the whole day I'm just stitching and not distracted with anything else. And I have always loved Bojagi. I think I saw it for the first time as a student some 20 years ago. And there were some books in our design school, and when I came across it, like you, it struck me as this really contemporary expression, almost like it reminded me of stained glass windows,
and also Mondrian paintings, you know, because it was all angular and I'm like really drawn to grids, anything with grids. And I was like, yes, this is so me. So, and from then on, I've always admired from a distance artists who are kind of choosing this as their main medium of expression. So, no, I find it really exciting that it's growing, and one hears more and more about Bojagi. It's something to do with, again, what we were talking about earlier, returning to more tactile and slower things. I'm really keen to ask you about your favorite tools and materials. I know traditionally it's Remy, but you mentioned you use organdy. And so would you like to share a little bit more about your materials and tools?
Yeah, yes, of course. Most of the time, at the beginning, the big problem for me was to find a good fabric because I've never been to Korea, and I just noticed that it was something special. And I found in France some rami, but it was so thick and so. Uh, I'm sorry because I just make some apart, but someone asked me about my seams and about my stitches, and this was just a problem because I love very neat. I told you I love very neat stitches, and with this kind of rami, which was very thick, I was not very happy with the results. So I decided to try with organdy, and it's easier to find organdy in Europe or in the country, in all over the world. So organdy is perfect. You can use some different, even some soft fabric. You can starch it if you really need to use this kind, and this open you more windows. Um, of course, when you go to Korea, you can find a lot of silk because they are very good quality silk and thin rami. They have oxa, which is mixed rami and silk. They have fabrics for their art. So for some of my work, I use Korean fabrics, and as I told you, I give a lot of workshop, and I want people to be captive of my fabric bought in Korea. So I propose most of the time organdy. I dye my organdy with different colors in order to open some windows and some ideas. But you can use. Last year, I made a workshop with a textile artist workshop with people from all over the world, and I proposed them to start and to look what they had in their at home, and they found very interesting fabrics, and the results were very interesting. But this is for fabrics, and about the tool, it's very simple. I use the essential is a ruler with I think that most of patchwork people you are using with indication of a 5 millimeters or a quarter of an inch, because you need this for folding the fabric in order to have a good, always the same fold. And in order to mark on your fabric, you don't use any pencil, of course. You use something which is something in I can show you, is a kind of a Teflon. This is very traditional in
The Hera
Korea.
marker.
Era marker, yeah. Because this is very important to fold, to mark the fabric, like leaving something inside the fabric, the threads of a fabric, and to fold it easily and to have something very neat. But after that, I don't need any special tool.
Mhm. And, you know, you and I were talking back in Birmingham about tools and the number of questions we receive about tools, weren't we? We were both saying, I think we were both asked Gosh, what was the most popular question for you, Maryse? I think for me
How
it was,
long,
which
how
needle
long
do you use?
which needle, which thread, and how long do you spend, how many time do
Oh,
you
how
spend?
long does it take?
Yeah,
Right? Yeah, I think
yeah.
people were very curious about that.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
long does
I
it
think
take?
with your with all your beautiful embroidery on your work, you can't answer exactly how long how many.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Sometimes it takes me weeks, sometimes it takes me months. So I can
Yeah.
never answer that one accurately. Um, yes, so that's really interesting to hear that you use a combination of Korean fabrics and you also use organdy, which obviously more easily available and accessible to all of us. Um, Wish we could all run down to Korea to do some fabric shopping. But organdy, do you ever use organza, silk organza?
Yes, some silk organza are very interesting. I think you use them too, and I think you can find in the best way to know. And I don't know if you do the same, Ekta, but when I want to use and or to buy, I need to in my hand to have a
Yes.
fabric and to touch. And if you can fold it, organza or silk or anyway, if you fold it and something remains in this fabric, this is good for Bojagi. I think you have your own ways for choosing different kind of fabrics too. You touch is soft or not soft or thick or thin, but I think you can understand that. And I think we are all the same. We need to touch fabric. For me, this is very, very important. And when you touch it, you feel this is good or not.
Absolutely. I think I am so attuned to what the fabric should feel like. I actually go to the store and buy it, and I would take it out and just feel it in my hand. Sometimes you have to judge the weight of it. On occasion, I've taken a needle with thread also. Now they know me, then now they are more accommodating.
Yeah,
So I take a needle and thread and I would just run a length of stitch across the end of it to check how it actually looks, because I tend to work mostly on linen, and sometimes the texture can be misleading, right? You think it's an even weave, but when you've done the stitch, it starts to appear quite uneven. So I do that, but tactility, that ability to touch is so important. And I only go and buy it from my local haberdashers, right? It's not a fancy branded thing. So I feel very lucky to be able to do that and support like small suppliers and small businesses uh, through the act of going. And to talk about fabric, oh my God, with the person who's selling. So we would often just like chat, which
yeah,
feels
yeah.
more part of the experience, right? Um, so I'm happy to hear that you do the same. Only you do that, I expect, in Paris, and then when you go traveling in Korea. Cool. I can see lots of questions coming in, so I want to leave enough time for those as well. But I would like to go back to these really fascinating images that you shared earlier with me, and for everyone to see. I think you mentioned the story of Bojagi. So if we can briefly go over that and hear from you the story of Bojagi, would be really lovely. And then we'll take some questions. So
Yeah.
I'm going to begin with this amazing piece that you shared of your grandmother's. Just look at that. When I went to France, I bought some linens myself with these beautiful, oh my God, they're so intricate. um, I often wondered, how did they do this? They had no fancy tools then, just needle and thread. Um, Yes, but talk to us about this one.
Yeah, I just say they didn't have any fancy tools. They just had thread, thin thread, cotton thread, which was a very famous in France before. It was DMC most of the time. It was cotton, very thin one, and a very thin needle too. And they reproduced the design with some blue paper, some very traditional. I think it's always the same. And after that, they put on a circle and they make their embroidery quietly. Um, I'm always so surprised because now we have very good lights, and before they only had glasses, but the light was not so good. I think in your country it was the same, and in Korea it was the same. The women made bojagi at night after they finished all their homework works, and they were taking care of so many things. And when I see this white embroidery, I say, "Oh my God! Now we have so good lights," and I think it was very hard.
I agree, and I'm always amazed at the intricacy of these stitches, particularly thinking, as you said, some of them, the ones that are about 100 years old, they were working by candlelight. But I also think maybe these were the moments that the women snatched from all the chores that they were expected to do, right? This was their time to be expressing themselves, to be just present with their own thoughts. I think it was important for them to do that. And I totally understand the urge to do that at night when everyone's gone off to sleep. It's like, I've got this half an hour just to myself. That this one is beautiful. What a wonderful heritage and legacy you have. Okay, so these are the slides that you shared with me. So let's jump in. You're going to tell us about Bojagi.
Yeah,
Traditional Bojagi.
thank you, Ekta. Bojagi is very old art. First time we heard about it was around the 14th century under the Joseon dynasty. And this went till, as I told you, till the beginning of the 20th century, when Japanese invaded Korea. And during this time, bojagi were used for, as I told you, for wrapping, for transporting, and for protecting things. Um, this is a very traditional bojagi. This presented in a museum, but you will recognize it's very modern. The design with the four links, and it's mainly square or rectangle. And this is one very indigo dyed, something very simple, but very old and very modern too. I think you have this kind of thing in India.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's this book?
This this book is very traditional too in Korea. In the Emperor dynasty, under the Emperor dynasty, everything was designed, and in order to remind, for example, this was made for the wedding of a prince, and everything was recorded. How many people, how many soldiers, how many horses, how many people were attending, and this is not easy to see on this slide, but if you see, you can look on internet, you will find everything is very precise. The attitude of people is very different, and each one is going, or every attitude is very different. And in those kinds of books, you could find some bojagi who were described. And for example, this is a wedding, and this is a very important ceremony. And in this kind of books, you can find mentioned pieces of cloths, for example, for 400 pieces of cloths and some 120 Bojagi. This gives you the idea, this gives you how important Bojagi was in Korean tradition. There was a Bojagi for each moment. I choose this one because it's very full of emotion. Those two ducks were offered by the man
True.
who wanted to marry, and he put two ducks which would symbolize the couple wrapped in a Bojagi in order to ask to the woman if she wanted. It was not so simple, but it's a little bit like that, to accept to get married with him. And the Bojagi remained during all their life in some important place in the family or at home. And even now, you can find in some friends' house, you can find this kind of present. And a couple, there is a funny story a friend of mine told me, and you can turn the head of a duck, and if there is some little problem or you're not happy with your husband or your wife, you can turn your head and say, I'm not happy. This is a kind of joke, and this was said, it was told to me by a friend of mine, and I found it was another sign that Bojagi is still very alive.
That's lovely. I love the ducks and the symbolism, and them being wrapped in Bojagi. And what a proposal it must be, right? Instead of the ring, you get these beautiful fabrics, and you get the ducks, of course.
Absolutely. This is an old one too, and this one is not transparent, and this one is what we call shogakpo. Shogakpo in Korean means patchwork. That is exactly like we do with patchwork, like we put pieces of fabrics together. And in this case, you can see a lot of silk, of course, but not of them were made by silk, only by silk, because as I told you, women did realize made their Bojagi at night, and they use like patchwork, old pieces of fabrics from old cloths or remnants from new cloths, but pieces too, and they put them as they feel, and the result gave something different, of course, because it depended of their idea of their creativity, and it was completely different. There was no special rule for making it.
Mhm. So it was quite perhaps very spontaneous, and it was organic. It sort of grew according to the kind of pieces they had or the mood they were in. Very improvisational. I love that quality of it as well. And these are traditional costumes.
Absolutely. These are traditional hanbok, and it was just for telling you and for showing you how is precious is this traditional cloths. And just a few stances about this. You could not use all the colors for, it depended if you were from the high society of middle or very poor people, you could not use all the different colors. But this is traditional for all classes.
Wonderful. And then we have a close-up of this Bojagi.
Yeah, this is those small knots are very important because they are symbol of good luck in Korea, and they are very often used now. And before, some of old Bojagi were full of this kind of little knots, and they were kept closed for a long time in order to keep good luck in the folds of a Bojagi. And this was shared between different, not different family, but your grandfather, your grandmother gave it to you, and you gave it you to your children, and so on. So it was very precious for the family. It was really a very important symbol of good luck.
An heirloom. We might have to rush through some of these because I'm
Yeah.
keen to get to the ones where you talk about your inspiration. Um, Here we go. I think perhaps we
Yeah.
could start here. Um,
Yeah, this one is very traditional because it's red and blue, because the story in Korea was divided in women and men, yin and yang. And in some Bojagi, which is traditional one, it was important to share blue and red in order to the same, to have good luck, prosperity, and good health.
Beautiful. And they look like contemporary pieces.
Yes, those are contemporary pieces. On the left, it's in the house of a friend of mine. So this is very contemporary and traditional too. And on the other, it's in a restaurant in Seoul.
You know, actually, when I went to Tokyo, I found some of these in Japanese restaurants as well. And I was so fascinated. How come they have Bojagi and they were not Korean restaurants, they were traditional Japanese restaurants. And I wondered for a minute if they also have a tradition of something similar
Yeah.
to Bojagi. I'm not sure.
No, I'm not sure Japanese had tradition, but as you know, the story of Korea and Japan are very closed. There have been a lot of fights, invasions, and but they are influenced by some of their tradition, and there is another thing that a lot of Korean people after the invasion had to go to Japan to work, and some of them remained there, and the family remained there, and their origin is Korean, but they are living now, and children too, in Japan. So there is something Korean in them, in their heart, and I think they want to keep this in their heart and to keep the tradition alive.
Yeah, it must be that then. Maybe there was a Korean heart beating there in that Japanese restaurant.
Probably.
So these are lampshades, also made with Bojagi.
Yeah, this is very modern. This photo was taken just before COVID, and the shop still exists in Korea, in Seoul, and they make some curtains and some lampshades like that, because light through this kind of rami is very beautiful, a very soft light. And I think you can understand this because
Yeah,
you have these
real.
lampshades in your country, in your embroidery, in your tradition too.
Yeah, they look absolutely beautiful with that lighting inside. This made me smile a lot. These are all your friends, I imagine, all
Yeah,
your Bojagi friends.
absolutely. This was in Turkey in 2019. And I love this photo because you can see all different kinds of Bojagi, all different kinds of women. Most of them are Korean. I'm the only French, but you can see the styles. Their Bojagi are completely different. I am on the left, the white, and just after there is one which is very important, which is covered with embroidery. This is very traditional. Jazu is very traditional in Korea, and the three others are very modern too. And I think this photo is very interesting. We show friendships, friendship sharing, and traditional around around women.
Definitely. And also your different aesthetics, right? Your choice of colors and the way you've composed each of those, it just shows completely different takes on Bojagi. I just love it. From this super, I mean, yours is so monochrome, minimal, and then goes into this beautiful, colorful
Yeah.
piece. Then there is an indigo blue one, and then of course that bright splash of yellow in the last image. I love it. Thank you for including this one.
Thank you.
That's a close-up of yours, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that a feather that you have printed, or is it
Yeah.
paper?
Yeah, this is, I use very simple fabric. You know, it's a silk, which is on paper, and you could put it on a computer, make your design, and print it after that. Because I wanted something very light, and I'm not very good in all kind of um, artistic things like printing and so on, because for me this is another work, and for me this needs too much time. I'm only devolved on Bojagi, and this is quite a lot of work. I think you can understand, because you have fabrics and paper, Hector, but I think you can understand, you can make everything or you lose your time. And for that reason, I'm always looking for very simple things. And I think it's okay for me.
Yeah, it looks absolutely beautiful. And you're so right. I think you have to make choices of how you can make things more efficient. And given a choice, I think we would all like to grow our own dyes and harvest them, and then color our thread and fabric and dye it. But I think somewhere we have to start drawing boundaries, that this is what I'm really interested in, and this is what I'm going to be focusing my energies on. So it's really sage advice, saying that, you just go for simplicity, and you're kind of taking away whatever feels extraneous, whatever feels like this is not your core focus. I think there's an important lesson in there. I do want to have some time for questions. So I think let's jump on to your inspiration, Shos. I loved this. I mean, this is Bojagi, right? You can look at it and you can instantly feel, okay, the joints, the lines, the seams. I completely get it. So talk to us through this one and the next few slides.
Yeah, this one is from San Museum in Korea. It was built by designed by Tadao Ando, which is a very famous Japanese architect. And I really love his work, his design, the purity of this building. And we have one in France now with his works too. And if you can look at Tadao Ando, is very interesting.
Yeah, that's great. I love his work as well, and it's just so minimalist, and it appeals to me that it's just these pure lines. And this one is so interesting. You've kind of included where the inspiration comes from and how you've interpreted it
Yeah.
in cloth.
Thank you very much, Hector. Which is my favorite period, architect and art period, called Bauhaus. I think everyone knows about this. I love your simplicity and the purity of the design. And I've been always, during my artistic work, influenced and always attracted by these very simple lights, but very efficient lines. This is Joseph Albers too, which is a very interesting painters, and with something very simple, colors become very strong. And this is my main target now. It's with just a few pieces, you can make something very strong. This is from a church in France made by Soulage. Soulage I've been working with black and white, and he's a famous painter, and I really love his work. It's very interesting to look at all those blacks. This is from, it's not black, it was at the beginning of Soulage too, but I tried to, not to reproduce, but to make some idea of one painting and one Bojagi just nearby. This was in a church in Le Raincy, which is Auguste Perret, which is an architect from the 1950 around, and I tried to reproduce this with Korean silk.
Oh, it's absolutely stunning. You know, I think I was reminded of the very first images that I had seen back when I was a student, and it just instantly reminded me of stained glass windows. So I was particularly thrilled to see this. I think this is probably the last slide, isn't it? And I think it's also from your exhibition.
Yeah, this is from an exhibition in Seoul. I made this sail because I used to be a sailor for a long time. I began very young and finished maybe 5 years ago or something like that, or 6 years. And I wanted to make something really from me. And this is a kind of spinnaker. And it was quite a challenge because of the shape of the sail. But I really love this piece, with two strong colors too. And I think it was a part of me, like it in all of my works, I put a part of me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I loved looking through the slides, and I could see everyone smiling and nodding. And I think everyone here has really, really enjoyed seeing your work, and particularly really understanding why you make what you make, what is important to you as an artist. There are lots and lots of questions. And I will try to get to as many as I can. I'm aware that we've already used up the hour, and I don't want to keep you too long. So let me try and find a few that kind of, I think we'll be able to address them quite quickly. So one was from Liev. Liev lives in Belgium, and she's asking, where do you buy your fabrics, in Paris or France? And I think for those of us who travel to France regularly, maybe we can pop into your favorite fabric shops the next time we are in Paris.
For white organdy, it's quite easy to find in France, because I go to the part of the shops where you can find fabrics for making curtains, which is a very simple cotton, rather stiff. It's not as stiff as pure organdy from India, but it's quite interesting. So you don't find it in patchwork shops, but in, for example, there is a shop in Paris, the name is Reine, like Queen. And in the third floor of this shop, you can find this white fabric, but only in white. If you want it in different colors, you need to dye it.
Or go to India, where you have it in a million colors.
Go to India, of course. This would be my dream.
I know, we keep talking about going to India together. When we do, we'll call you.
Absolutely. I hope. No. I need to say something, that the more you do, the more you improve. And the stitches are visible. You don't need to think, never think that stitches are not visible. I have some Korean friends who make bigger stitches than me, and the Bojagi is okay. So this is not, the target is not perfection. Stitches are always visible. So please try and have fun doing, because it's not a hidden stitch, not at all. You stitch, it's a whip stitch. So the best way is using very thin thread, very thin needle, and to have good light for working and to improve and to practice. But stitches are visible. But the less fabric you take when you make your whip stitch, the more beautiful is your work, of course.
Tammy is asking, what kind of thread do you use in your work?
I use a very thin one. It's not it's a cotton one. It's a French brand which is fil à gant. It is thread for how do you call a gant for when it's cold? I forgot. For
Glove.
gloves. Thank you. Yes, but I think it's an old name. The name is fil au chinois, but you can use very thin thread or silk thread.
Either very fine count cotton thread or very fine count silk thread.
Yeah,
Silk thread, I mean, anyway, it's going to be fine. So
absolutely.
are there any other questions? I can take perhaps one more because circles. Oh yeah, Linda had asked very early on when you were showing, I think it was your black and white piece which has circles in it, and she had asked, of course, says she's amazed by the circles, how beautiful they are, but how do you make those seams?
This in the case of circle, this day you need to be quiet and not to be too nervous. But I prepare the circle and I put it on the first fabric, and then I cut and I fold the first fabric and I put them like that. You see my hand exactly interlocked. But there is no trick, just be patient. Of course, you can do that when you want to begin, but if you take your time with some mark on the fabric and you know exactly, it's possible. Be confident.
Practice, as you said, practice more. Yeah, I think we've more or less covered everything. You mentioned a designer, Oka Moka.
Yeah.
Is that you spell it Okamoka? We'll find a link to add.
Yeah, the name is OQ
Okay.
Q again, A again. If you don't find, I can send you.
That'll be lovely. Yes, I think people
Yeah,
might
with great
like to
pleasure.
go and
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
more.
very interesting.
Great. So I want to finish on with one question. You know, I've seen your work. You've talked about shapes, the circle, and then we see a lot of lines. You've used squares and rectangles. So it's quite geometric from the examples that you've shown me. Is there one particular shape that you feel you're drawn to always? You know, it's the one that's kind of like your favorite and it always appears in your work?
I think really like curves.
Mm-hmm.
I like curves, and I love pieces included in the middle of another pieces of fabric. This is very important for me. I don't know why, but I need that in most of my Bojagi.
It's your artistic voice, Maryse. It's what you
Yeah,
like doing. It's your signature. Oh,
maybe.
I have really, really enjoyed our conversation. I can't believe it's been an hour and what 15 minutes. It's absolutely flown. And I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us for sharing your time and for sharing your wonderful talent, your passion. Um, we are, I mean, I know I am super, super inspired. And I want to do more Bojagi, learn more about this tradition. And I want to wish you the very best for your upcoming exhibitions. I know you're off again soon. You're finishing work. Is it your exhibition is opening soon, right? Do you want to share
Uh,
about that? And maybe people who can come can come.
No, even I can go because it will be a biennale in Jinju, where I was in artist residency last June, and I'm finishing a piece for this, and it's quite a challenge because just after I need to send this very quickly, and after that I have another exhibition in the south of France, which was important too. So. Um, as I told you, Hector, the end of the year is quite busy, but I'm very, very happy to spend time with you and to make this art more famous. And if I can help more and give you some tips more, and uh, thank you so much, Hector, for your kindness. Thank you so much to all of us, of you, and you are really very nice to be here and to be interested in my work. So thank you so much. Thank you.